Welcome to Charts Today. It's Tuesday, the 5th of May, back after a bank holiday weekend here in the UK. And we start by looking at the oil price. We've got a new upside target not activated on the continuous contract, but on the actual contract, which is this monthly contract, the July contract, we've got a new upside target. So remembering that multiple targets increases the likelihood of upside targets being met. So we've now got targets as high as sort of 158, 178, and if we look at the roll chart, 197, 210, that was slightly exaggerated with the roll, without the roll. And that's the key thing: is crude oil at the moment sitting at about $114, and we've seen it in the 120s. But the key thing is that's towards the end of the contract. We're early in the month, so it gives us plenty of time to see prices higher on this contract, and so that 115 level is what we're waiting for to see that breaking. So really quite key there. And WTI also set to break that 110 level, and that's really key as well. And probably the one that almost matters the most politically in the US is RBOB gasoline. This is really the petrol price at the pump, if you like, wholesale. Having just been in the US for the last couple of weeks, everyone's screaming at over $4 a gallon. Well, we've got targets to 5.96 on the refined product. That's breaking new highs, and that is really going to be politically very difficult for the US government, seeing prices going up at least another 25%. So that's an interesting chart to watch there. But this is the 60-minute chart. That's sort of the shorter term chart. Coming back to the markets, we've got the dollar still in a sideways range. Interestingly, looking at the yen, that was the intervention that we talked about from the Bank of Japan. We're seeing sterling sitting in this range. Again, if we go to that's the medium-term chart, we go to the short-term chart, we have got upside targets. So that's quite key as well. Bitcoin, that's been an interesting one. We have broken that 80,000 level. So that's really interesting, and on the 60-minute chart, that is breaking higher as well. So whether you're a fan of Bitcoin or not a fan of Bitcoin, you can't ignore the fact that we're back above that 80,000 level. We still have these downside targets, but it's looking, as we cross the cloud, it's looking like that downside target can now be discounted. And that's a key aspect of understanding the targets. We saw the US markets were mixed yesterday, but we've got the futures up this morning. So despite the situation in the Middle East, we have got the markets still taking it in their stride. The FTSE is down this morning. So this is the future, and we are waiting to see if we activate this downside target. But the lower high and potentially just testing the cloud will be interesting, and DAX down slightly as well. We're seeing Asian markets were fairly hit. We've got the Sensex down, still below the cloud there, and we're seeing on the Aussie market waiting. We've got the budget in Australia this month, so that's going to be really quite interesting as well. We are seeing some big moves in some of the soft commodities. There's cocoa. I'm about to analyze that for clients this morning. Coffee bouncing off the bottom there. Wheat has been very strong. That's really interesting. And if you look at the weekly chart on wheat, you can see here that we're crossing the cloud on the weekly chart. We're starting to make 2-year highs on wheat, and that means we're starting to discount these downside targets as well. So that's the key point, is the downside targets given at a much higher level and now not looking, and there's really quite clear support around 500 for wheat. So that's really quite key. We're seeing these soft commodities really starting to look more bullish. There's corn on the daily chart, on the weekly chart, and then on the 60-minute chart. So we were bullish last week on those on grains for clients, and we can see that happening again. Gold Looking at the 60-minute chart, it has been weak. We're still below the cloud there, even though that we're up this morning. And silver has also been weak, although we are just testing the cloud, so uncertainty there. Looking at bonds, we can see the Japanese bond market that has activated that upside target to 270. That is still a worry, and we're just edging higher all the time. That I expect will come back into the news. And if we look at US bond markets, we've still got that target, have tested new highs there. And if we look at the UK this morning, still holding above that 5.05%. The fact that UK borrowing is above 5% is quite key. And if we look at the Aussie market, we've got higher bond yields there, around the same level as the UK market, just below 5 at the moment. And then the Indian bond market set to activate a new upside target to 8%. So that would be very scary for India. This Middle East crisis probably having a really big effect on their economy. We're seeing the rupee at 95, another new high there. That's going to be very inflationary for India. So coming back to some of the stocks, we have seen, well, Apple had very strong results last week, but not enough to make a new price high. So even though the results were stellar, and we have got an upside target, we're still failing to make a new high. We look at the 60-minute chart, that does look better. That was the jump last week. But it's really interesting that when we look at these tech stocks, a lot of them failing to make a new high. Amazon was first. It's holding on to its new high. Google or Alphabet, that is also making a new high with a big upside target. And then we go to Microsoft, nowhere near making a new high, has really been falling off. Meta, similarly, not making new highs there either. Nvidia, interestingly, failing to hold the new high. So we're back below the level that we saw in October. Despite stellar results, the market is not really seeing a trend there. And Tesla, we've got a new unactivated upside target. And if we go to the Dow 30, we can see we were pretty hit yesterday. Home Depot were down to a new multi-year low, so that's worrying below the cloud. Downside target's given at around 375 to 299, and we're just getting to that level now. This 309 level, that is really where we've got to. So that target given back in last year. So these targets can take time to play out. We look at Nike, that's another one that's not looking so strong, bearish below the cloud. And here we just see there were a handful of stocks that were to the upside. Amazon, quite key there. And if we look at the NASDAQ, we see Micron, really strong performance there. That is a big upside target, pushing to new highs there on the cloud. And if you go to the 60-minute chart, we can see the targets there. So really worth watching multiple time frames, remember. A quick look at the UK market. We haven't got prices in yet because we're just at 8 o'clock. So we know the FTSE was a bit lower on the future. So that's it for today. Until tomorrow, have a great day. Bye for now.